Let me tell you something you might not know, but probably should have figured out by now. If we surrender to globalism and what, for lack of a better term, our enemies are trying to do to the world, there ain't no coming back. There is no weapon big enough to redeem your soul. There is no one strong enough to pull you back from the brink. The only thing you can do personally in order to fight it is reject it. And no person or individual can do that for you. It's quite literally a personal journey. I've never been a real strong believer in the religious aspects of our lives, even though I have been educated on the subject. I've been confirmed in the church. I've read pertinent sections of the Bible and have read Revelations on more than one occasion in my life. However, there is no denying the parallel between what's written in Revelations about one world government, one world religion, and good will be called evil and evil will be called good. There's no denying the parallels between what's written in those passages and the times that we live in today. And according to the Handbook of Life, which apparently the Bible is, if you turn your back on goodness and light, you lose your soul. Because in the end, whether he shows up or not, Judgment Day is coming. Because only so much negative energy can be introduced into our reality before it takes over the whole thing. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's really quite basic. We've all seen it in one aspect or another in our lives. If things are allowed to deteriorate, deterioration becomes the norm. And good, bad, or indifferent, when things are allowed to deteriorate, that's classified as negative. But when we're willing to become proactive, get involved, we can curb the deterioration so that negative doesn't become a strong factor in our lives. And I suppose in a way that's what I've been talking about all along. Whether it's your life, your country, your automobile, or your home, or anything else for that matter, it requires some kind of participation to be positive and preserve it. And looking the other way only promotes negative influences. Someone a long time ago relayed the details of a dream that they had to me personally. They dreamed that I came along into their life at some point or another, and the big guns that I had attached to some vehicle saved them. Well, I didn't tell them at the time I knew what they were talking about, and I kind of wish I had, because there are no big guns to save that person. Their redemption requires their interaction, their repentance for the things that they've done, no less to try and go out of their way to make the situation right. And in a way, that's where we all stand today. We have the ability to take a stand and change things. The question is, will we push back against the negative forces that are trying to invade our lives and actually do it? I've had a lot of negative influences in my life, and because of it, I understand negative. And because of it, I find it practically impossible to trust anyone. Because every time I've went out of my way to give my trust, it's always been betrayed. Not just sometimes, not just once in a while, but every freaking time. So I've pretty much developed a life strategy where I don't ask anybody for anything. I don't rely on anybody's help if I can help it. Well, that's been my experience. Hopefully it hasn't been yours. Because it's a hard way to go through life. But we all do what we gotta do. But I will say this, it puts me in a unique position for what the world may be turning into. Because I have lived that way the majority of my life, I don't have to fall into the system. Quite the contrary, I can work around it because that's what I have been doing the majority of my life. Doing without just because I can, making it up as I go along because that's how I do things. Most people aren't in that position. And should the world ever change into what it's trying to be changed into, they will fall victim to submitting to the system that could potentially cost them their souls, or at least wise, according to the manual as I understand it. So it would behoove the average person to do what they can while they can, even if it's just a small thing. Because, as I've said before, on more than one occasion, and I'll more than likely end up repeating it before all is said and done, if we all pitch a penny or two into the bucket of freedom, eventually it'll be overflowing with liberty for all. And I'm sure there's probably some of you out there who thumped on the Bible a whole lot more than I have, and would be willing to make the argument that these times are prophecy, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Well, I'd argue differently, saying that we were bestowed the gift of free will. And if we're willing to overlook that gift and give it away and submit to some authoritarian system that's out to control our lives and our very destinies, that prophecy will be fulfilled. Because without free will, it ruins the entire experiment and turns into what essentially will be a godless existence. And that's why those who submit to it won't be welcomed in the kingdom when and if there is a second coming. So, I suppose more simply put, sure, it might be prophecy, but it doesn't have to be fulfilled in this time. It can only come to pass if we let it.